There is one more type of dispersion that we need to discuss. So far, we've talked about foams, which are air bubbles in a fluid. We've talked about emulsions, which are water drops in a fluid. We also can have solid particles in a fluid. These are called colloids. So a colloidal suspension is a suspension of small solid objects in a fluid. It's just like an emulsion, but you replace the liquid drops with solid particles. It's just like a foam, but you replace the bubbles of gas with solid particles. And colloidal suspensions, colloidal dispersions, are also commonly used in food. One of my favorite examples is coffee. The black in coffee is made up of small black particles or colloidal particles of coffee that give the black color. You can have other things. For example, a puree, potatoes, are made up of small particles that are ground up. They also can move and flow because they're small particles. So the role of a colloidal suspension is to transport solid particles, but do it in a fluid. So even though the particles, the black particles in coffee, are solid, the coffee itself is like a fluid because it's predominantly the water in which the particles are suspended. Colloidal particles can actually also act as a surfactant. Colloidal particles like to exist at an interface between two fluids. Just like a surfactant molecule, an amphiphilic molecule exists at the interface between oil and water and stabilizes that interface, so too can colloidal particles exist at the interface and stabilize the interface of the two fluids. Or they can stabilize the interface of a gas and a fluid. So when you have colloidal particles acting to stabilize the interface, if it's an emulsion, we call it a Pickering emulsion, after Pickering, who was the first person to recognize that colloidal particles could act as surfactants, could sit at the interface and stabilize the interface. And their role, just like the case of surfactant, their role is to prevent two interfaces from coming and coalescing. It keeps two interfaces apart. So if you have colloidal particles on the surface of drops of an emulsion, then those drops won't coalesce because the colloidal particles will act to stabilize the drops to prevent coalescence.